Everything you said we already knew, more or less.
Well, here's something that you didn't know.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another show. I hope you enjoyed last week's and going over sort of the black and white processing. This week is going to be a little more on the story side of things, and covering a really simple image. Sorry, that did not make sense. I'm going to be covering a pretty simple image, but nonetheless, I think it's special to me at least, and that might be because of the story and the life experience I had during that time. The photo is from over a year ago, and it was from a festival in northern-ish Azerbaijan, and it's one of the few celebrations that both Muslims and Christians celebrate together. And it includes going to an Orthodox church or temple and making offerings or prayers to, I think, their ancestors. I'm really not, I should look back into it, but it's a fascinating event to see because there's two different religions celebrating very similar events. They grab a sheep or a chicken and bring it up to this old church, and they sacrifice it there. And they also walk around each corner of the church and kiss the corners on the outside, and then they go in and they light a candle and place a candle, and then make a donation or say a prayer. There's quite a few interesting things that go on, and I didn't get all of the information behind what's going on at the event or at the celebration, but I did see it all. I was there to take pictures and video and really document it to create a cultural video. And so you're looking at this photo and you're wondering, wow, like once again hazy, and that's because it's hazy from all the people cooking their kebabs, their sheep kebabs over the fire, and it fills the whole valley with smoke and this haze, and that lasts like 2 days. We got there the evening before the celebration, and that's when you feast as a family, and you make toasts, and we had a bunch of homemade wine at the place, and I think within like an hour they made 12 or 15 toasts. Like it just felt like you were always toasting to something, and I didn't understand it. Because it was a minority language, and even the translators with me didn't understand it because they didn't know that language. So overall, it was just like a crazy, interesting, fascinating experience, and one that I look back on quite fondly because I got to see a beautiful part of that country and a celebration that is unique and rare to happen. Yeah, absolutely fascinating. 1 second. Sorry about that. But yeah, so as I was saying, really memorable time. And this photo was one that we, again, pulled over to the side of the road while we were on our way to go up to that church that everyone was headed to. And the light was perfectly backlighting this tree, and that's what instantly drew my eye to it. But then also the colors, the fall colors, and just how there's so much separation between this one primary tree and the background. Just really, really beautiful find, I thought. And so let's go in here and go to camera raw defaults. And so here you see that there is, the tree is still being backlit quite a bit, but not nearly as much color. And honestly, that color was added in afterwards, a fair amount. Obviously, the raw file captures quite a flat profile, and so there isn't nearly as much color and contrast as you would see in real life. And I would say that between the final image I have here and the raw file, I pushed it a little further than what we saw, but not necessarily a whole lot. But yeah, let's get into the edit. You can see, again, the before and after. And there's quite a few things that actually change here. So let's start with the white balance. I made it way warmer because I thought that really helps bring out the tones of the yellow and that fall warm evening feel with the golden light. And then exposure I brought up a little bit to emphasize the leaves that were being backlit. And again, the contrast, I made the contrast at that point, again, higher than I normally do, but to make a separation between these bright points and the darker background. Let's go bring that back down to 0, and you can see how it just doesn't pop nearly as much, and it also helps the black trees that are sticking in pop out a little bit more. And then highlights, I brought them down just to restore a little bit of detail in the leaves along this tree line. And shadows I didn't even touch because overall it was a pretty well lit image and not super contrasty due to the help of the smoke. And then the whites, I think I just wanted a white point on the trees and in the background. And so you can see it's all red there, but I don't think that's necessarily accurate to what's actually being blown out, because there isn't any detail in here, and there wasn't originally. But I think it might be just saying that the color is fully saturated. I might have to look into that, or you could look into that. Either one. I might bring it up again. But then blacks I brought down because I wanted to keep the trunks pretty contrasty and dark. And clarity, I didn't want to increase clarity too much because I did want the softer tones. I didn't really want to cut through this mist over here. And then vibrance I brought up to plus 38, and that was to again get more color in these leaves, because this image is all about the color, and of course the tree and the composition a little bit, but primarily it's about that golden color that I wanted, and I accomplished that pretty well by just adjusting the white balance. The more I do landscape photography, the more I realize that white balance really makes the image. If you mess up on the white balance, that takes away from the overall feel. Early on, I definitely didn't even touch the tint slider, and that's because I didn't know what I liked. I didn't know if I thought the photo was too pink or too green. But now I'm definitely way more aware of it and prefer photos on the little bit of green side, because Canon cameras tend to capture them a little bit on the more magenta. Yeah, so, and then the temperature slider I've been comfortable with for a while, and I definitely can see what images work better with a warmer tone or with a cooler tone. And then let's go into the grayscale panel, and I didn't do anything there because the colors were already great. Effects, I boosted the dehaze to plus 20, and that was to get a little bit details on this tree line here and in the background trees, because I still wanted there to be that forest feel. And then the vignette was to just mostly get rid of the attention on these trees here in the front and these ones up here. And yeah, let's go into the crop. A little more unique than my previous, I think all of my previous shots have been 4x5, and I really do like the 4x5 crop, but also the 16x9 is one that I originally started doing a lot. That was sort of my go-to when I first started doing a lot of landscapes, and I think that might be because that's what you record movies in, and that's sort of the ratio that is on TVs and all that. But for me, it also emphasizes the rule of thirds a little bit, because it gives you a little bit more room, and it cuts off any distractions up top and at the bottom. So sort of like 4x5 cuts off the edges of a 2x3 ratio. The 16x9 just does that for the top, and so I guess it really depends on what your composition is and what you're wanting to eliminate from the frame. So I saw it as I didn't want this tree down here or the extra trees here, or the extra information up here. I wanted it to be tight in on this one primary tree and not have any other distractions. So that's my explanation for the crop. I didn't have to adjust that at all. The what is that called? Straighten tool. I didn't have to do that at all. Spot removal I did quite a bit because if you look here, I didn't want this tree here because it's sort of just that extra distraction, and it takes away from the main focus again. So as I was saying, a large part of landscape photography is eliminating distractions and really focusing in on your key subjects. The less distractions you have, usually the more powerful an image is. And countless people will tell you that. A strong photograph has little distractions. And figuring out how to do that well really separates those who are masters and those who are just beginning. So again, I'll clear all those spot heals, and you'll see that just that little tree there. And I just went over it a few times with the clone brush to just get rid of it. And it really wasn't that hard because there's a nice sort of soft color palette here that I can just place over that. And again, sort of the lazy way of doing it, but it gets the job done and it's nice and quick. Like, no need for me to bring it in and use the healing brush. I don't remember what it's called in Photoshop. It probably is called the healing brush, or clone stamp tool, or content aware remove tool. There's a bunch of them that'll do that. And the one in Camera Raw does fine, but it's not necessarily always the best option. And then the spot adjustments, I didn't do anything, but on the gradient tool I did. I added, I added yellow, yellow and brightness, and that's sort of to emphasize the backlighting of the tree. You can see the light coming in on this side of the screen, and then lighting that up. And I darkened this side here to draw your attention to the tree even more. And you can see I had quite the gradient on this one because I didn't want it to be obvious, but I still wanted it to be there, and it's still affecting this a little bit, but then it fades off almost completely by the time it gets to the trunk and the rest of these trees. And then just to add on that, I took away the exposure by -25, so not a whole lot, but enough to, again, re-emphasize this tree. I've been saying that a lot. The whole thing about this photo is to emphasize this and take away distractions. So whether it's removing this tree or darkening the side here, it's all about focusing on the primary subject. And I think that's about it. I'll go into the settings here a little bit. F4 just to get as much light in as I could, and also to eliminate any distractions and try to blow out the background a bit and get rid of and blur this out a bit, right? If I was to shoot it at F8 or F11 or F16, this side here might have been in focus and it would have taken away a little bit of the attention from this tree. ISO 100 because it was daytime. 1/250th, I just wanted to make sure I was over 1/200th in order to get no camera shake, and then 200 millimeters to completely isolate this one tree and focus just on it and not the dirty riverbed below or the trees on the side here, or anything else. When you zoom out, when your focal length is pretty telephoto, then it cuts down on what's in the frame. And that may sound obvious, but your perspective changes rather than just the magnification. So if I was shooting myself right now at 16 millimeters, you'd be able to see a lot of the wall around me, but then also you would be able to, like, I would look a lot bigger. I'm not sure if that makes sense. I might go into that a little bit further in a future video, like other things. But yeah, I don't want to drag this one on too long. Thanks again for watching. If you have any questions, put them in the comments, subscribe, share this, and yeah, I'm really open to criticism. I am doing this a lot to document the process and have fun with it. And if it's only friends or family who watch this for a laugh, then that's okay. But then if there are other of you who don't know me in person, send me an email and let me know what you think. Yeah, follow me on Instagram at Mason Unruh or on Facebook at Mason Unruh Photography. I post there weekly or multiple times a week. And that's all. That was so abrupt. I'm sorry. Peace. Have a good day.